Good morning, dear participants. A very warm welcome to each and every one of you. My name is Brigitte Karstan. I live in Israel near the Sea of Tiberias, and I'm a member of the coordinating team of this online training program of FACILITATOR Educare. It is a pleasure to welcome you to the fourth session of Module 2 on this online Course 1. As usual in the previous sessions, the first part of this session will be a theoretical presentation, followed by questions and answers. Then we'll have a short 5-minute break, and then we'll have an interactive workshop. I would first like to kindly remind you to verify that you have written your full name and to keep your mics and cameras turned off, so that we can maintain a smooth Zoom connection. For the same reason, please write any question you may have for yourself, and then at the end of the theoretical presentation, you will be invited to write your questions in the chat. In the previous session, we saw how teachers and educators can facilitate the process of eliciting the human values from within the child. To do so, we saw that example is the only way to inspire and set the children on the right path. Today, the session will be dedicated to the topic of the 5 Ds, which are dedication, devotion, discipline, discrimination, and determination. The 5 Ds are connected to the practice of human values. You may recall that we mentioned them as very effective tools to enhance the cultivation of our character. As you may recall from Module 1, we had seen that character is based on our principles and moral values. We had said that character is the measure of how embedded the values are in our personality. We have also seen how in order to be an exemplar, we need to practice. And it is now my pleasure and privilege to introduce Suzanne Palermo, who will guide us into a deeper understanding of those important character traits, the 5 Ds. We already met Suzanne in the previous Module 1 on Session 7, when she taught beautifully the topic of cultivation of character. And of course, we also met her during the last session, when she made a brilliant summary of the first sessions of this Module 2. I would like to mention a few important details of her professional career and of her very meaningful and creative contribution to FACILITATOR Educare. Suzanne Palermo was born in the United States of America and moved to Italy when she was 12. She completed her studies at the Academy of Fine Arts of Rome and later moved to Milan, where she worked in the editorial field for children as illustrator and project designer. Since 1996, she lives in the Italian canton Ticino of Switzerland. Suzanne first heard about FACILITATOR education in human values in 1989, and since the very beginning adopted the program in her professional work and as a life compass. She has been endeavoring ever since to develop value-oriented material for children, like stories, songs, activities, and material support for teachers, parents, and all those willing to foster in their students and families a human values education and a deeper perspective into life's marvels and mysteries. She is the author of the marvelous book, The Story of Marty, A Journey on Planet Earth. Suzanne has developed didactical material rotating around these ongoing projects and launched a web-safe container to share part of this material in 2013. Additionally, she has published a variety of articles dedicated to human values, both online and through a local Swiss magazine since 2018. Suzanne is part of the editorial team of the valuestransform.org, an international website that aims at spreading SSEHV to more and more people. She has been collaborating for many years with the ISSE of South Europe, of which she is the Vice Director, contributing also greatly to the development of the Educare magazines and the Institute's handbook. And she has participated in many seminars in South Europe as a speaker. Since 2019, Suzanne collaborates with the Swiss Peace Forum that is led in Lugano, offering workshops to students from elementary to high school age. And she's the co-founder of the open space Arte e Valori, which is an initiative carried out with her husband and is situated in Giubiasco. The space organizes free exhibitions, cultural meetings, and human values workshops for children, to which all are welcome, from art lovers to children, with special attention to the elderly and people with disability. It is now my privilege to invite Suzanne to enlighten us with her deep understanding of the 5 Ds.
Thank you so much, Brigitte, for this lovely presentation and introduction to today's session also. And hello, everyone. It's really, really wonderful to be back. And it will be a great pleasure for me to spend some time with you today to talk about this incredible topic, which is the 5 Ds. Just allow me 1 second. I will share my screen. So, as Brigitte was saying, the 5 Ds are very, very much related to our practice of human values. And as she was reminding us, to the cultivation of our character. And again, Brigitte said that our character is the measure of how embedded our moral principles and human values are in our personality. So we had come to the conclusion at the end of the session dedicated to character, to the cultivation of character, that it corresponds to one word, and that is practice. So we will see how the 5 Ds enhance our practice of the human values today. Actually, we will see how they revolve around the practice of anything. And since this is, in any case, of course, a context of SSE-SE Educare, we will consider the 5 Ds within this context, which is why I would like to immediately begin with a leading question. How do I reach Mount Olympus? Now, this question would like to emphasize and stress and highlight that we are aiming at something very, very high. We are aiming at something very special. We are aiming at human excellence. We are aiming at the development, at the establishment of an environment and culture of love in our families, in our societies. And we know that the only way to achieve such an environment is through our practice. We also know that it all depends on our awareness as to how important such an environment is for the future generations as well. The founder of the program, SSE-SE, has encouraged us all the time to aim high. He has said, aim high, but take baby steps. So I'd like to take a step back, though my presentation already did that for me, to answer our question. How do I reach Mount Olympus? As you see, the answer is see to it that you proceed in the right direction. And this is exactly where the 5 Ds enter into play. They offer us the steps. They offer us direction, which, by the way, is another word that begins with D. It's another very important D. And they help us stay on track. Now, before we explore the 5 Ds one by one, I'd like to share a story with you. I love this story very much. I heard it over and over during my childhood. My mother would read it to me, and of course to all my brothers and sisters. So as said, I really heard it many times. As you see, it's the story. It's called The Carrot Seed, and it begins like this. A little boy planted a carrot seed. Every day he sprinkled the ground with water and pulled out the weeds that were growing around the seed he had planted. But nothing happened. People would come to see him, and they too noticed that nothing was happening, nothing was growing. And they would say, I'm afraid nothing is coming up. But the little boy would continue to sprinkle the ground with water and pull out the weeds that were growing around the seed. More people would come to see the little boy, and they too would comment and say, nothing is coming up. Actually, one person even said, nothing will ever come up. But the little boy would continue to pull out the weeds and sprinkle the ground with water. Until one day, something happens. A carrot came up. And look at the size of that carrot. And the book ends with these beautiful words. Just as the little boy had known it would. So what made our little boy so successful? I'm sure that you have guessed. He had dedication. He cared for his seed. He had discipline. Every day, he would sprinkle the ground with water and pull out the weeds. And no one told him to do that. He knew he had to do that, so he just did. He had discrimination. He was able to not allow the doubts of all the other people disturb him or distract him or disorient him from his purpose. He was able to select which words were encouraging for him and which were an obstacle for him. Of course, he had a lot of determination because he did not give up. And as our little boy's dedication became stronger and stronger and unwavering, it ripened and developed into devotion, a form of loyalty and love for his seed, for his purpose. And all of this rotated around a strong sense of duty. Now, the other day I was wondering, why did our little boy decide to plant a carrot seed? Actually, a carrot. What happened before the story began? This is something the story doesn't tell us. And then I realized the little boy had an inner prompting. Something from within him, from within the soil of his heart, sprouted. And this something was so strong that it gave him the self-confidence and a motivation and the will and resolve to make a decision to plant a carrot. And it gave him the energy to pursue his intention, his purpose, and to realize his vision. So basically what happened before the story began, our little boy found a goal. And the goal is fundamental. If I have a GPS, a geopositioning satellite device, it will be useless if I do not know my destination. If I do not know the road, the street number, the city, the town, the country where I'm headed, I will not be able to program it. So we need to know the goal. We need to know where we are going. We need to know our goal. The founder of the program has said this in his own words. He has said, more important than guru is guri. Now, most of us know that the word guru means teacher. We have seen during our last session that teachers direct and they guide by example. We have seen that teachers lead so that children and students can become self-leaders. I also always like to think of teachers like mirrors. A teacher, a good teacher that has embedded the human values in his or her personality. Such teachers, they reflect the values in anything they do, in whatever they say, in their attitude, their behavior, the way they speak to the children, in the selection of activities. And when the children look into that mirror, they see their own potential. Now, a deeper meaning of the word guru is that which dispels the darkness of ignorance with the light of wisdom. Such a guru, such a teacher, of course, is a teacher with a capital T. So it's very important. Teachers are very important to find such a teacher on our path towards Mount Olympus. Then what is the guri that is even more important than the teacher? Guri means goal. Guri means target. And what is even more important is to be conscious of our goal, conscious of our target. So let's begin now, going into the 5 Ds. Because as soon as we identify our goal, the 5 Ds are set into motion. And the very first D, as you see, is dedication. Now, when I dedicate myself to my goal, I will do anything possible to achieve it. I will dedicate my knowledge, my skills, my time, my effort, my love, my presence. So if I have decided that I want to become a gold medal athlete, what will I do? I will practice my sport every day. If I decide to become a piano virtuoso or to become a master, to master some musical instrument, what will I do? I will practice every day playing the piano or whatever instrument I have chosen. I may decide that my goal is to foster a healthy and happy family. So I will dedicate my time, my care to good meals, to a home that is neat and tidy, to a harmonious environment. And of course, I can identify a goal to serve the needy, to pursue a cause or an ideal, like human values. What counts, what is worthwhile to see, is that the root meaning of the word dedication comes from Latin, dedicare, and it means devote and consecrate, and also sacred duty. So first of all, we see that the word dedication, this first D, also contains duty and devotion. But what's most important is that it contains a very strong component of selflessness. Whatever our goal may be, we put ourselves aside. Our goal becomes the leader. So it's not so much what we decide to do. It's not so much what we do, but how we do it. And it's not a question of quantity, but quality. And though dedication calls for a lot of self-effort, a lot of work, a lot of presence, we will never refer to it as hard work, but heart work. And as our dedication grows and matures and ripens, like we saw in the story about the little boy and the carrot seed, it becomes unwavering and one-pointed. It becomes the object. The object of our dedication is all we think of. And I like to also associate devotion with the word vocation, because vocation contains the word the voice and action. So it is always this inner prompting that prompts us to action. It is this inner seed that is showing us our target. So our one-pointed focus, of course, is connected to this inner prompting. And this also means that there are no distractions, and we gradually become more and more identified with the object of our dedication, the object of our devotion. And this entails a very strong commitment and trust. We trust this inner prompting, and we trust our goal. And this, in one word, means love. Devotion is another word for unwavering love and loyalty to the object of our devotion. Now we need something to help us stay on track, and that is discipline. When I think of discipline, as you see by the picture, I think of my husband's vineyard. It is a huge place. And the very first time I entered into this beautiful vineyard, I was so impressed. And two words came to my mind and my heart, and they were discipline and order. All the plants were lined up one after the other perfectly, prepared for the new season. It was just something so beautiful to see, so full of harmony. Here we are, just about a month and a half ago, harvesting. And here's my husband. He's walking to our car in the woods, because you cannot reach this vineyard driving there. You have to walk 20-25 minutes through the woods to get there, and 20-25 minutes to get back to your car, and then you drive home. So the work in the vineyard calls for a lot of self-effort. Now we are nearing the season, what you call pruning. The plants have lost their leaves, and they begin to look like this, like the picture you see on the watch that we are using again today. I assure you that when you look at the plants like this, you don't really understand very much. You don't know very much. You don't really know what to do with all those branches. So you need to use your discrimination. Working in the vineyard has taught me all about the 5 Ds. You need to choose the right branch, the one that is strongest and nearest to the heart of the plant. It's a beautiful metaphor. And by so doing, you regulate the plant. You prepare it for the next season. And this is what comes out of it. From all of those branches, you choose one, the good one, the one you need. And you choose a smaller one with 2 gems that will give you the plant in 2 years. Of course, by doing this, we are supporting the plant. Now, one thing I'd like to say is that we could dedicate an entire session to all of these Ds, to these 5 Ds, an entire session to discipline. So what I have tried to do now is to identify a few keywords to help us understand their meaning in our practice. And the discipline I have learned in the vineyard is also to stay centered, because we help the plant by supporting it, regulating it. We help the plant go back to its center, to recharge its batteries for the new year. The center, as you see, is the biggest part of the trunk of the plant. Of course, a lot of our discipline is connected to discrimination. We have seen this time and again, how we need to watch, how we need to go in and watch our words, our thoughts, our character, our heart. We need to evaluate whether they're good or bad. We need to ask ourselves if they are in line with our human values. So we need to be like a swan. The swan is a beautiful emblem of discrimination. And people who work with who follow animal behavior, etologists, they have said, they know that swans actually have a gland in their beak. And this allows them, if we give them a mixture of milk and water, it actually allows them to drink the water and discard the milk. And this is what discrimination, of course, is about. We are not talking about the negative connotation that we give to discrimination in our society today, gender discrimination or social, cultural, religious. We are talking about the faculty of the intellect to discern what is good, what is bad, what is right, what is wrong. And there are 2 kinds of discrimination, individual and fundamental. Very briefly, we can say that individual discrimination answers the question, what is right for me? Whereas fundamental discrimination answers the question, what is right for everyone? Of course, if our goal, if discrimination wants to take us towards what is right, then it is based on something essential and fundamental. It is based on an underlying principle of truth and love. ISSE-SE has said that discrimination is a component of wisdom. And this is very, very practical advice. He has also added that it teaches us, it helps us learn how much importance should be given to a given situation. So this means, this is very important when it comes to our time management. How much importance, how much time should I give to this situation? And as we proceed, as we walk up towards Mount Olympus, our questions become deeper. Our inquiry becomes deeper. And we begin to ask ourselves, what is true? What is false? Or what is relative? What is absolute? What is transient? What is eternal? Until we reach the fundamental question, who am I? Where am I going? What is Mount Olympus after all? So this fundamental question is fundamental discrimination. Then, of course, we have determination. We have a target, we have a goal, and we have to reach it. We have to achieve our goal. We want to. We have the will and the resolve to do so. Here it is. I love this quote by George Eliot. It will never rain roses. If I want more roses, I have to plant more roses. So there is a lot of self-effort involved. In the 5 Ds, there is a lot of self-effort involved in our practice. Now I have added a few Ds that I call D for don'ts, because on our path, as we practice, we can encounter some obstacles. Certainly our distractions. There can be many distractions on the way, and we need to know how to give the right measure to them, the right time to them, and to overcome them eventually. One of the biggest distractions is made out of our doubts. Our doubts can distract us very, very much. Then, of course, we have disappointments. And our disappointments can create a lot of doubts and further distractions. And then we have our desires that we know can become endless and distract us. And again, disappoint us. So they are all connected. And they are all connected with something which we refer to as our ego. So this is very important, because if we want to overcome these distractions, disappointments, desires, and doubts, and we have seen that the first D is dedication and has a strong component of selflessness, what do? We enhance our dedication. Our dedication to our inner prompting, which in this case is our deep yearning. And as we become more attached to, more identified with our deep yearning, naturally, we cultivate detachment. Detachment from our doubts, our distractions, our disappointments, and from that ego that many times gets in the way. And of course, this brings with it a lot of delight, because we are more and more centered in our deep yearning, in our purpose, in our goal, and we are learning to align, to have thoughts, words, and deeds pointed in one direction towards the achievement of our goal. So to sum up, these are the keywords I identified for today's session. The 5 Ds begin with a goal of which we are conscious, we are aware, to the extent that it becomes a duty for us to fulfill and to carry out and to achieve. And at that point, the 5 Ds are set into motion, and we begin with dedication, because it has this very strong component of selflessness. And we have said that as our dedication grows and matures and ripens, it turns into devotion, this strong love and loyalty for our goal, the object of our dedication, which corresponds to our inner prompting, our deep yearning. And we cultivate a strong identity. Actually, our goal becomes the meaning of our life. And then we adopt a pattern. We follow a certain discipline and self-discipline. And part of this discipline, which calls for a lot of self-effort, is the use of our faculty of discrimination. So we watch our words, actions, and thoughts. Be sure that they are aligned with one another. and based and rooted in our values, in our heart. And of course, we need determination, so a lot of resolve to get to the end of the game. Now, of course, as I normally do, I added something which regards Marty, because Marty too, you know, he falls from a rainbow. He also encounters the 5 Ds. First, he receives a watch. We know what this means. Then he receives a key. On the key, there's a tag, see always inside. And that is showing him how to use the watch. And then he receives a bag of tools. And he looks in the bag, but nothing is in there. He thought he would find a screwdriver, a hammer, some nails, nothing, just a piece of paper. And on the paper he reads, the 5 Ds and more. Don't be distracted by doubts, depression, disappointments, and delusion. Be devoted to your mission, your vision. Use discrimination and watch your steps. Let discipline mind you and mind your discipline. Be determined to finish the game. Never give up. And remember, it's your duty to get back home. At the end of his journey on planet Earth, he also finds a smaller, very small little piece of paper on which he reads, and never forget that your destination is divine. So these are 2 more Ds. Maybe he received this piece of paper because, as we know, he was heading back home. He was heading to the rainbow. And Mount Olympus is a little bit like a rainbow because it is where sky and earth meet. So to end, I would like to once again share this lovely image of our little boy with this gigantic carrot. It is so beautiful to see how his resolve and will and love for his seed managed to bring this result. Just as he had known it would. He knew from the very beginning that his seed would have become this gigantic carrot. He had seen it already in the soil of his heart. And since the beginning, he believed. He believed in his goal. He believed in his inner prompting. He believed that he had the potential to succeed, to achieve his goal and meet his purpose. So as we head towards Mount Olympus, or whatever our goal may be, what do we need to do? We need to dedicate ourselves, devote ourselves to this goal, which becomes our duty, and follow our discipline with determination and discrimination. So thank you so much for following this morning. It's been a true pleasure for me to share it with you.
Thank you so much, dear Suzanne, for this really brilliant and clear presentation. Very enlightening indeed. And now it is time for questions and answers. And it is the time when you, dear participants, you are most welcome to now write your questions in the chat, and Suzanne will answer them. I already have a few questions, dear Suzanne. The first one would be, I am lazy when it comes to discipline. What can I do?
Well, I think that many of us, if not most of us, many times encounter this problem. I personally normally consider myself active and efficient, but I definitely do have times when I see that I lose my presence within my discipline. And I have noticed, however, one thing, that when it comes to dedicating myself to what I consider my goal, my deepest purpose, I normally have no problem. I think that when we are really truly dedicated and our intention is so deeply rooted within ourselves, we are inspired, we are motivated from within, and we do find the energy to keep on track, to follow our discipline. However, sometimes when it comes to something more like I would like to follow a discipline to lose weight or to eat better, then maybe it becomes more of a routine, and it can become more difficult to follow up on it. Just a few days ago, I had an experience about this myself. It's nothing so personal, but I have personally decided to walk as much as possible every day because I am always at the computer. And so it's really something I need to do. And I have made it a point. It is part of my discipline. And among this, this discipline also, I walk once a week normally with a group of people, and we do some Nordic walking, which I also enjoy very much, but it is part of my discipline. And during the past, I'm telling you this because it has taught me something during these past few days. I missed out on this for a month and a half. I wasn't able to go. And I noticed the other day that I was able to go. I was at home, I had the time, and I wanted to go, but there was a part of me that did not want to go. And I just began to see how my mind was creating excuses. And finally I did go. But this experience, which was so simple, so daily, let's say, really showed me once again, because we are all in a learning process, and we continue to experience and learn. These are things we know, but we need to go through them again and again to perfect them. And I realized once again how our mind can really be our obstacle. We need to control our mind. We need to watch the working of our mind, because our mind can distract us. We saw the D's right now. It can distract us. It can disorient us. And our mind can create the best excuses. So I was telling myself, it's too cold, it's too rainy, you have to go through the presentation for Saturday. I had all very good excuses, but they were excuses. They were distractions from my discipline. And what I also noticed is that we know this, habits are very important. And I had lost the habit. It wasn't my fault. I really had some commitments during the month and a half. I was out of town, but the conclusion was that I had lost a habit. I had lost a good habit. So this again stresses how we really need to practice. We really need to follow up on our habits, cultivate our habits, so that the habit itself becomes part of our lives. And at that point, I think that it becomes a little bit more easy for us to follow, to not fall into laziness. If I can just add one more thing, I have also noticed during the years that laziness, there are two kinds of laziness. There can be outer laziness or inner laziness. For example, I may be lazy, I may not follow up on my commitments, I may not be able to keep a schedule and do what I had thought of doing or had planned. This is more connected to my activities, but I may actually be very good at doing that. I may be very efficient. I may work for hours and hours and follow a clear set of discipline, but I may not, if we speak of human values, be applying the values within myself. So here in some way we are connecting to a form of laziness which is more internal. So I think this too, we should, at least I try to do this, evaluate if my laziness is connected to what I am doing or what I am not doing also within myself with respect to applying the values. Sorry, it took a little bit long.
Excellent. Thank you, Suzanne. It's very enlightening. I have two more questions here, and we already have one question in the chat. Again, all participants are most welcome to write their questions in the chat. So the second question would be, please, how has one of the 5Ds helped you when you face a challenging experience?
Well, I really think the 5Ds have helped me many, many times in my life. And I'm saying this because preparing this presentation, of course, I reflected a lot on the 5Ds and reflected a lot on my experience and my understanding with the 5Ds. And tried to identify when and where the 5Ds were useful, were helpful for me, and also when and where I did not follow the 5Ds, when I did not use my discrimination as I should have. So again, this self-watching is fundamental. During these weeks while I was preparing the presentation, one experience came back to me, which was very, very, very important. Many, many years ago, when I was working in the editorial field, I was working at a project, and I had just finished another project. And it was, you call it a part work. It is a series of magazines that they sell in the newspaper kiosks. And they were 36 magazines. And we had just finished this job, and I had just began another very big job. And the people who had published, the publishers of the first project, I have to say it had been successful. So they all of a sudden decided to produce 24 more issues. So all of a sudden, this was good news, of course, because it was the consequence of the result, the successful result of the project. But for me, it was a very big problem, because all of a sudden I found myself with too much work, and it was really impossible for me to handle that. And I was very afraid, I was very stressed out, and I really didn't know what to do. And to tell you the truth, at a certain point, I did suddenly say to myself, I believe in that I am this person with my limits, I have my limits, but there is also in essence a potential within me. I believe this really very, very much. And I sat down and told myself, this is the time to practice, not only to believe, but really to practice. So I relied on this potential. I relied on this inner essence and told myself, you have nothing to worry about, you will do it, you will succeed. And yes, I did manage. And actually, this probably triggered something else, because a few days later, I happened to speak to a lady, and she had an agency, and I was able to delegate through her. But what was most important in this experience is that one day I really discriminated between what was true and what wasn't, and where I had to put my attention. So I think that was a really important experience for me.
Indeed, excellent example as well. Thank you, Suzanne. The next question can be, how can we avoid that discipline becomes too rigid? Our determination makes us become overly ambitious or develop negatively.
Yes, this is another question that's very important, and that I feel we should always ponder, reflect on. Again, it's a question of self-watching. We need to really watch ourselves, listen to ourselves, go within. The word rigidity, I have to say, makes me feel tight and tense. And this makes me think of what Satya Sai says, that love lives on expansion. Love is expansion and ego is contraction. So I feel that when there is this tension or rigidity or if we sense something that is more contracting, we need to step back a minute and observe ourselves and ask ourselves, what should I correct in this? What can I improve? And again, reconnect to that first D, which is dedication, which, as we said, is really important that it's the first D because it has this strong component of selflessness. So I think that this can be very helpful to avoid unwanted, undesired developments of whatever we do, of our discipline, our determination, just to stay connected to our inner prompting and to this initial step of selflessness.
Thank you, Suzanne. And now we have a question that we received through the chat. Thank you, Elena, for sending it. How to regain motivation, energy, discipline, and dedication to the goal after hard times of doubt and depression, when it becomes difficult to find inspiration again?
Yes, I understand this question. It can be very, very difficult. It can be very difficult. As I said before, we are really, truly all on a learning process. We are all learning, and this process has its ups and downs. And we all encounter moments of fear and depression and doubts. And I just think, I really don't know, I can't give out an answer like that because it is such a personal, also intimate process. However, I think that when we do reconnect to the joy of our inner prompting, that initial inner prompting, and we somehow connect to the joy that this prompting gave us, we can rekindle it, we can foster it again, and we can help it grow and ripen once more. We need to believe, we need to go back to our initial belief and always know that inside of us, we do have this potential, and reconnect through silent sitting, our moments of when we said we take a pause, we go within, meditation, really reconnect to the beauty of what initially we were pursuing, and foster it and believe in it, because it is still there. That seed is still there in our heart, and it's just waiting for our attention and dedication and determination. It is just waiting. So I'm sure you will manage.
Thank you, dear Suzanne. It was an excellent presentation, and all these answers are very enlightening as well.
Thank you all. Thank you all. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, we have another question here. What is the difference between dedication and surrender, please?
Well, there's surrender, yes, is part of dedication, I think. When we dedicate ourselves to our goal, at a certain point, as we said before, we put ourselves aside. So when we put ourselves aside, it means that we are so dedicated that our only purpose is to achieve the goal, but we have put ourselves aside. So we somehow are not looking for something for ourselves. We are selfless, and we do surrender the results of whatever we are doing. There's a beautiful quote by Satyasai, which I actually thought of bringing today, which I then took out because there wasn't enough time. But in my words, what he says in this quote is that it begins like this: what will the harvest be if the seed is planted, but there is no rain? What will the harvest be if there is rain, but there is no seed? So the conclusion of this is, he says, we need both. We need our self-effort. We need to plant the seed, but we need the rain. So we need to surrender to this divine grace that brings the rain so that our seed may grow. Our seed is the dedication. The rain is, excuse me. Excuse me. Our seed is the dedication, our planting the seed, and we surrender, praying that the rain will come. So this is how I see it a little bit.
Beautiful. Thank you so much again, dear Suzanne. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Brigitte, for everything. Thank you. Thank everyone for being here.
And this brings us to the end of the first part. And now we'll go out for a 5 minutes break, please. 5 minute breaks, and we'll meet in 5 minutes for the workshop. Somebody wrote that it is a beautiful answer. Thank you. See you in 5 minutes.